Okay.
And welcome to episode 508 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Grace Winburn.
Swaff.
Michael O'Malley.
In today's episode, we're going retro, even though it was only 7 episodes ago where we were retro. But we're doing old school Cinematary here. We are coming back with a quick summer series. We're going to be doing our annual Patreon picks because we love our patrons. And really a movie that needs no introduction, and really a failure of the podcast up to this point to not dedicate an episode to. But we will be bringing 1995's Heat to you here today on Cinematary.
Yeah, this is episode 1 of our 170 episode Heat series, in which we talk about the entirety of Heat 1 minute at a time,
frame by frame,
which is a podcast that exists if you're not aware. One Heat minute is a podcast in which every episode is dedicated to a single minute of
I don't think I have that in me, I gotta say.
The last episode has Michael Mann on it.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
frame by frame?
Okay, so we don't have Michael Mann, but we have the man Michael.
That's
and
true.
He's on our first episode.
It's just now occurring to me that's why you were saying that.
That's what I'm saying. Our man Michael. Not Michael Mann.
Yes, okay.
On today's episode, we're doing it old style. We got part 1. We're gonna be talking about a handful of new movies, and then in part 2, we'll be talking about Heat. This Heat was we can mention it more, but Heat was a Patreon pick by my friend Chris Metcalf, who handed me a $20 bill at a bar in Nashville and said, "Do Heat." And if that's the way you want to do,
this whole thing works, by the way.
If you want to do that, just find me.
Money.
Step 1, go to a bar.
I take cash, I take Venmo, I take Zelle.
You can write that in your will,
in his collar or in his
waistband. Do it in his glasses. Do it in the leg of the glasses.
I prefer that actually. And just say "Do Heat." All right, well let's jump into movies that we saw this week. Truly the movie of the moment. For sure, it's good to be doing old school Cinematary for this because I feel like this is one that would dominate a conversation, and that is Obsession. It'll let me. There you go, Obsession. I have not seen Obsession, but so Swaff, I'm going to toss it over to you and Grace.
Grace, do you want to introduce this one?
Sure. This is the directorial debut for 26-year-old the YouTube youth. There's 2 YouTube youths, Curry Barker. This is we follow Bear, a young boy who is hopelessly and obsessively in love with his best friend, Nikki. And he makes a wish that she loves him more than anyone else in the world. And wouldn't you know it, as they say, be careful what you wish for. It might come true. And indeed it does. And then we're off and running. Or rather, we're kind of being dragged along by, I don't know, some rope tied to your body and you're being dragged along the car behind you.
We should say that me and Grace very much have the minority opinion on this movie. I feel like most people are in love with this thing.
They're obsessed.
I feel like
with
it's been very divisive. You guys are far from the only people I've heard who disliked it.
I also feel the same way, Michael. I do think that it's very divisive. But I have heard a lot of praise, and it is getting people in the theaters. When I said that I had run into some friends at a bar after the movie, they did not give me money. They did not ask me to do Heat, but they did ask, "Hey," I said, "I saw a movie. Are they even my friends?" But I thought it was funny. They asked. I said, "Hey, I just got out of a movie," and they said, "Which one? Backrooms or Obsession?" So I think that that's very, impressive. That this is one of the movies of the moment, and it's a horror movie from young directors. It's original, to a degree. The careful what you wish for.
It's not based on an IP.
It's not based on an IP. It's not a sequel. It's not a remake. It's not a prequel bullshit. It just is. So I think it's very impressive that we have 2 original horror movies, plus a independent comedy that I hope we'll talk about later, dominating the box office right now. However, I don't know what it is. I just really wish it wasn't this. I was so disappointed by the entirety of the film. It was, to me, it was shocking to be shocking. I don't really feel like this director, he's very good at making very heavy statements with his images, but I don't think that he really sat with the impact of those images. Nothing really lingers. There's some really interesting things happening here. I said it was very technically proficient, but that doesn't mean that it's good. That, you know, and that's the long and short of it. It doesn't really take any sort of a turn, because I feel like it decides this character's fate pretty early on, and that's the only course of action right up until the very end, and indeed it is. And I don't want to say too much more else or spoil too much more else, so I'll toss it to Swaff.
Can we talk about this movie without spoiling it? I feel like we need to talk about some spoilery things.
Go ahead and spoil it.
Can I ask before you?
Yeah.
I'm not super spoiler phobic, but how important would you say spoilers are for this movie?
Not,
because I think honestly, like horror movies are hard to spoil because the experience is the kind of visceral like mood and scares and stuff. But is it important not to know?
There's really only one major plot point, and it happens early on. It's when this character makes a wish, as Grace said, and his wish comes true, and it makes his crush obsessed with him. And then the rest of the movie is just kind of seeing. Though. That's in the trailer, yeah.
That's in the trailer, yeah.
The rest of the movie is just kind of like seeing the extremity of that, and to what extent this girl is going to like constantly like manipulate him by committing acts of self-harm and doing like
violence against others,
crazy shit like duct taping his front door closed and things like that.
So that he can't leave.
There is a bit of a
for naming like they're like all this crazy shit, and then he said duct taping his front door closed. Like honestly, I was waiting for like something much more grotesque than that.
I mean, there's a
lot of grotesque things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now the spoilery thing that I do want to get into is like there's a little bit of lore information that is revealed to you about halfway through the movie, in which we learn that it is not as though this character has changed this girl's mind about him in making this wish. Instead, he has kind of allowed her body to be possessed by some being from another world. And it doesn't ever fully explain what that world is or what kind of being is inhabiting her body, but he's not in a relationship with the girl that he once knew, right? However, that girl is still like conscious of what is happening to her. There's a scene where the entity has fallen asleep, and we hear this girl kind of like speaking to him very quietly and letting him know, hey, this girl that you're with is not me, right?
Is it the entity from the final Mission Impossible movies? Is it the same one?
Yeah, it's
a crossover. It took over for real this time.
But as a couple people have written about, including Angelica Jade Bastian, who's written one of the best reviews of this movie, in my opinion, this reveal kind of allows you to think about the movie from another perspective, that of the girl who's having her body inhabited, because she, having no agency or control over what is happening to her, is effectively being raped multiple times over the course of the movie, right? And the movie does acknowledge this in this kind of like sleep talk scene, as well as in a scene where you see them having sex and he's just like on top of her and she's just sort of like lying there staring blankly at the camera, right? But as Grace kind of alluded to, I don't think that the movie really like reckons with the weight of what is happening here. Like this is very much a story from this guy's perspective, and he is there's been a lot of discourse about whether or not he should be seen as the villain of the story. And he absolutely should be seen as the villain of the story, but that's not really how the movie treats him.
And it's not how the director treats him either.
No, exactly. Like, I think by the end of the movie or throughout the movie, we are supposed to see this guy as very put upon and like as if he is a victim in the situation, which like he kind of is, but he's not a victim to the extent that his love interest is, right? And so there's a lot of ambiguity and a lot of discussion online about whether or not this should be seen as like a feminist film about, you know, the way that the quote unquote nice guy will still, you know, happily remove a woman's sense of agency from her, or if the film should be seen as misogynistic because of the way in which it is not really respecting or like treating what's happening to this woman with kind of the weight that it deserves, right? And you know, when for me this ultimately comes down to like, do I trust the filmmaker, right? Do I think that the filmmaker's heart is in the right place? And I gotta be honest, not even a little bit do I think that Curry Barker's heart is in the right place with this. When we were talking in Slack earlier, Michael said that this line I'm about to say reminded him of a drill tweet, but I think the best description of Curry Barker is he is a chuckle fuck. Like, he is ultimately just looking for laughs. He is looking to shock the audience and make them laugh. And that was the experience of people in my theater. I was pretty uncomfortable, having an unpleasant time watching this movie, but people around me were laughing like all the time, right? This is kind of a horror comedy. And, you know, in these situations in which like you're asking yourself, like, do I trust this filmmaker? I think that it can be illustrative to listen to the interviews that the filmmaker has given and you see what they say about some of the things that you're wondering about, see what kind of tone they approach the topic with. And I just want to play 2 quick clips of Curry Barker off my phone here. Here is the first one about like how he wants us to see this female character.
Never wanted Nikki to feel like a possessed demon. I wanted her to feel like a crazy jealous girlfriend.
I'm your freaky Nikki.
And so it was always playing like, don't play possessed here. Just go into like the whiny.
No.
The kind of desperation of really wanting this. Because when you remember why you're doing something, not for the sake of being scary, but why is this character watching Bear sleep? Because she's that obsessed with him that she wants to, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why she's doing the things she's doing. It's not just for the sake of being scary. That's always kind of important to me, right?
And then the other clip I want to play is him commenting on the ending of the movie and kind of the place that the character is left in. So this is also very spoilery, but here's what he says about that.
She probably goes to jail. She's probably going to prison for a very long time. There's also like $1 billion in Ian's house and Ian's dead on the floor. So she's connected to that money in some way. Who knows what the cops are going to kind of put together as the story, but she's not going to have a very good life, I don't think.
Ha ha ha.
Wait, he's a billionaire?
So one of the characters makes a wish because he doesn't believe when Bear says it's real, you can make a wish. He's like, I need you to make a wish to undo my wish, obviously. And the guy's like, yeah, fucking right. I wish I had $1 billion. Because what would anybody do when confronted with a wish making machine? Yeah, I want money. Like, I don't care about anything else. And
I do kind of like that, the concept of he can't get someone else to use their wish on him.
Well, of course not, because, you know, you got to live with it. There are some those clips. I'm so sorry, Swaff. Those clips, like, they make my chest hot. Like, I get so angry hearing them.
It's gross.
It's so gross. It's I don't know, maybe I don't want to be like, who hurt you, Curry Barker, but clearly some girl did a number on you or someone, because there is something like very sadistic, and you're like, and again, maybe this is like me projecting, but it feels like you're looking to sort of fulfill something or win some sort of argument or battle. But it's just the entire thing is so misogynistic, and it was all very, very difficult to watch. And I just didn't really have respect for the grotesque images. I think, if you're going to put grotesque images like on the screen, is it meant to like challenge us as the audience, or is it just to make us squeamish? And this is where I feel like his YouTube is showing, which is how can
Your YouTube is showing.
Your YouTube is showing his YouTube is showing in that how do you generate clicks and traffic to your content is, with some sort of like gross out factor, like something, shocking, just for the purpose of being shocking. So then people have to go seek it out and find this thing. And I think he's really nailed that. Some people, just a few more things, because Swaff and I, we talked so much about this. I've had a lot of people say to me that the online conversation is that like Nikki is a cat, not in that she's like possessed by a feline spirit, but she's a cat in that you have to earn her affection and respect, and then once you have it, then the animal, or in this case the cat, or in this case Nikki, will never leave you alone.
But I think the conceit that he doesn't earn it, like he just wishes for it,
right? And that's the thing, is that as a man, you men, I'm looking at you, Zach, as you play with your cat. You men as a man cannot, you don't like that you have to earn your respect from a cat. Men don't like that, which is,
I have
many times over. Every
how do we know that you didn't just
see-
wish for it, Zach?
Did you see that cat?
I
Yeah,
did.
come on.
Yeah, come on. But you see what I mean? Like that's also very shallow, very, very shallow theory, but they talk about that a lot. And then I keep having people say all the time that no, Nikki is not possessed. And that feels so.
She literally is. Like
that's exactly
the text of the film confirms
is that she is possessed. And it's like, how are you going to say in the movie that you like wrote and directed, where a character is possessed and we're given proof as such over a phone call that she's possessed? She's not possessed. She's just really whiny.
She's fine, actually.
This is what she wants. And the worst part is that we never knew who Nikki was to begin with. So that's another thing, is that like those shifts from being possessed and like the real Nikki, when they come through, they don't puncture in the same way. Like they don't totally like shatter this illusion, because I never knew who she was to begin with. I only knew her as filtered through Bear and as filtered through everybody else. So again, like this poor girl, she never had any agency, and neither did the other girl, because if it's
there, we don't even need to get into
we don't need to
the
get into
other
that
female character, but I don't like that either.
there is nothing truly there. Like I'm so mad that I saw this, that when I got out, I texted us and said, I wish I had seen Backrooms instead.
Yeah,
but you did see Backrooms.
Can we can I say one more thing before we move on from Obsession? And that is that like one narrative I've seen crop up online about this movie is that it's about incels. It's like a commentary on inceldom. And I hate that reading so much, because like this guy does not actually fit the archetype of an incel at all. For one thing, incels tend to be like very socially isolated, to like not have a lot of close bonds with other people, right? That's why they spend all their time on these like fucking misogynistic incel forums, right? That is not the case for Bear. He has like this really tight circle of friends that he sees like fucking all the time, because he works with them, he went to school with them, he hangs out with them at bars after work, and like they seem like a really supportive group of people. He seems like a fairly well-adjusted guy, to be honest, aside from the wish thing, and he's not really shown to be online very much at all. We see him scrolling Nikki's Instagram page for a minute and just kind of like longing for her. But aside from that, he's not online, which is like a major part of being an incel. And thirdly, he never says anything explicitly misogynistic, which I think is a really key part of inceldom as well, where like these people harbor like resentment and bitterness towards women at large. And he doesn't seem to have that. This guy's problem is that he's just too shy to tell his crush that he likes her, which is like the most normal thing in the world. Like, this is not a movie about this particular type of guy. It's mostly a movie about like how scary, crazy, jealous girlfriends are, you know? But
Bitches be crazy.
Bitches be crazy. Yeah.
Can I ask one thing that's less, it has nothing to do with the narrative of the movie. It's more of like the business side. I think one of the other things about this movie is that it was made for less than $1 million and it's made a boatload of money.
Oh yeah.
And I think this somewhat applies to the next movie we're talking about as well. I guess to all, you know, it seems to me, and maybe y'all have different thoughts. It seems to me like if this is a conversation I was having with a friend who's a filmmaker, and it's like, the easiest path if you're a filmmaker and you're trying to kind of break in, horror is the easiest thing to like do that.
That was
with.
what Ari Aster said, right? Isn't that why his first 2 movies were horror movies?
Exactly.
He said that's what he could get funded.
Yeah, it's dirt cheap. People always love a good horror movie. And so I bring that up because it's like, we have Curry Barker with Obsession, Kane Parsons with Backrooms. Like, who knows what their next steps are? They've both been successful movies. I know Curry Barker is going to be doing a remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I mean, like, that's just like the direct one. Like, what is his career?
Apparently, he's actually already wrapped shooting on a second feature that is not Texas Chainsaw. I don't know anything about that movie.
Oh, okay.
That is kind of wild that, like, so that production happened before they knew that Obsession was going to be a success, right?
Yeah.
So,
but it's just kind of interesting to me that, like, you can kind of, and you look at it, it's not even just like more recently. I mean, Spielberg had done some movies, but like Jaws is like his big kind of propelling hit. You think about, you mentioned Ari Aster, like it just seems kind of like horror is such an entry genre. You have some people who still kind of keep going with it, but for the most part, it seems to be the easiest path. If you're a filmmaker, if you can make a successful horror movie, then you can kind of get a blank check after that, and you can kind of go from there.
No, that's definitely true. And
I would be curious because sometimes those folks like flame out. Like, I think until recently, like the Blair Witch Project was like the highest like ratio of box office gross to cost, and like those people have done jack shit. Like basically, they had like that one kind of like moment of like flash in the pan.
Same is true for the Paranormal Activity director. Yeah.
It's just kind of interesting to me. But anyway.
Yeah. Obsession sucks. IMO. Don't like it.
I'm obsessed with talking shit about that movie. So.
Okay, as someone who might see Obsessed, I've never been like super excited to see it, but it is like kind of one of the movies to see at the moment. Is it valuable as a text, not as like a work of art, but as a text that like this reveals something about like a segment of our culture, or like, for instance, like, I am not saying it is like Birth of a Nation, but Birth of a Nation is a valuable text in that it reveals a certain like kind of like this captured something about like a certain culture.
I say yes. I wrote about it in my Letterboxd because I think that this generation, or at least this like segment, I'm thinking about Gen Z,
20-something guys,
these young 20-something guys, because their most formative years of like relationship building, like friendship and romantic, were totally stifled. And I don't want to blame COVID for everything, but I mean,
COVID made them misogynist. You heard it here first.
The way that the inner machinations of my mind turned this over, and it's the thought of that, being completely isolated from the rest of your peers, so unable to really engage in social networking that wasn't the social network, that wasn't social media. Not really knowing how to like interact with your peers, how to like, because what do? They just play trivia, and like friendship is win trivia. Like that's that's their thing that they do. But it does seem, like
Don't
they're
they
trying
know
to
that friendship is podcasting?
Don't they know that friendship is podcasting? But it's like they're
Friendship
doing
being trivia feels more millennial coded than
right.
Gen Z to
That's
me.
not them. That feels like performative. That's not their.
Yeah.
That's not their age demographic. But what I mean to say is that, like, I also think about how they view intimacy. Like, what does intimacy actually look like them when they haven't really experienced it themselves? And then also there's that added, danger where like intimacy means like a sharing of germs and getting sick and, spinning out from there. COVID killed people, and, infection, outbreak, proximity, carnality, this all breeds like sickness and like a real fear of the body, your body, and other people's body. So I do think that this speaks to something of this generation where they're so totally indoctrinated online. Like the online atmosphere like accelerates these misogynistic behaviors. Everything is in the extreme. There's a real fear of, the opposite sex, or even sometimes the same sex and gender. There's just like it's like an intimacy crisis entirely, that like they make a horror movie about being in love, or they make a horror movie about like having big feelings and not knowing what to do about them. And that, really unable to like parse out these big moral questions of like, do I really like this person? What does it mean to like rob another human being of their agency, of their identity? I just don't, I think that they've been totally squashed from that, and they're totally emotionally stunted. And then they go and they make this movie. I do think that this speaks to something. So I do think it would be worth seeing it through that lens. But I think that the film on the whole, I mean, if that's what it speaks to, it's very bleak.
Yeah. All this wishing reminds me of a great James A. Caster joke, which is, if I had a genie lamp, most people would wish for 1,000,000 wishes. I would wish for 1,000,000 genies. You get 3 wishes per genie, plus it solves my second ask, which is more friends. All right, the second movie of the moment, coming to us courtesy of A24. It's Backrooms.
And YouTube.
Backrooms.
Our other YouTube
So
views.
I actually wrote a whole ding dang essay about Backrooms on
Everyone should go
cemetery.com.
read the ding dang essay. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Very good.
The first thing that I have written for Cinematary that was not a TIFF recap since 2021. So
Well,
it's been a minute.
The first thing written on
Peer pressure
Cinematary
works.
in general since like 2021, right? Or 2022.
2022, we published like 2 or 3 things, but that was when we kind of stopped doing it.
Hey,
but
peer pressure works. We got them. We got it in. We got it.
I really liked Backrooms, and I was thinking about it so much the day after I watched it that I just had to write my thoughts down, because I was looking for essays online, kind of exploring the angle in Backrooms that I was most interested in, and finding basically nothing. So, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm seeing stuff in the movie that's not there, but I
think you're being the change you want to see in the
I'm
world.
being the change I want to see in the world. And that
See
is presenting the argument. Backrooms is about AI, actually. There's been a lot of discourse about how the movie is about quote unquote trauma in kind of the boring cliche way that like every indie horror movie is about trauma. And it kind of is. The main relationship in the movie is between a therapist and her client. Renate Reinsve and Chiwetel Ejiofor are the 2 main performers. And there is ways in which both of these characters are dealing with important major negative experiences from their past, and that's affecting their present. But my thought was that if you look at the movie on a more metaphorical or symbolic level, there is this whole other layer of subtext in which it is actually about artificial intelligence. And the main reason that I think that is because in listening to interviews with Kane Parsons, which I've listened to and read a lot of them, he brings up AI in like almost every conversation, and he's incredibly intelligent, incredibly eloquent guy. Could not be further from my impression of Curry Barker. But I won't spend this Cinematary podcast talking in depth about the AI stuff, other than to say, like, a lot of people have been comparing this to the work of David Lynch. And I do think that is an apt comparison in some ways. But if we're thinking about this as being a Lynchian text, like, a very important thing about Lynch often is that the things that we are seeing are not necessarily like obvious as to what they mean symbolically, right? Like in Twin Peaks, there's a whole like kind of system of symbols revolving around things like electricity, for example. And like electricity means something in Twin Peaks that like the show never explains to you. And I think that there's a similar thing going on in Backrooms. But as a movie, as like, you know, a cinematic experience, I found it to be pretty thrilling. It is scary in a way that I feel like almost no horror movies have ever been. Like the only thing that I can really compare it to is Skinamarink, in which, so like, you know, it's this internet like liminal horror thing of just like being in these very strange, kind of impossible spaces and kind of feeling very.
A minute to explain what the concept of the movie is.
Oh yeah, probably a good idea. Yeah. So I guess I'll start with character stuff. Chiwetel Ejiofor is our protagonist. He owns a furniture store. He is
the Ottoman Empire. I love the name of the first.
Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire.
Oh boy.
And he is a pretty lonely, unhappy guy. He's an alcoholic. He's divorced. He's very angry about how his divorce happened. He very much thinks that, you know, he never did anything wrong. And he's in therapy, but he mostly spends his therapy sessions like in kind of this antagonistic relationship with his therapist, and trying to insist that, you know, he's been right all along. He's right about everything, right? And so he's not making any progress in therapy. And then kind of the inciting incident in the movie is he discovers in the basement of his furniture store this impossible door. He just like walks right through one of the walls of his furniture store and finds himself in an entirely new, strange space known as the Backrooms. And this is kind of this endless series of hallways covered in this like horrible yellow wallpaper. And the shapes of the hallways are not shapes that like any sane architect would make. There are, you know, random slopes up to nothing, and, you know, places where like you look up and you can see a hallway going up that you can't actually get to, and, you know, so on and so forth. It's also like cluttered with furniture that is, you know, nonsensically placed. It seems like pieces of furniture are kind of like copied and pasted everywhere. In some cases, like on the ceiling, or like halfway coming out of the wall or something like that. And he eventually kind of goes missing in these back rooms, and his therapist goes in to chase after him, and kind of that's the central kind of conflict of the movie. But yeah, to go back to the liminal horror Skinamarink thing, you know, large stretches of this movie just involve characters kind of like wandering through the back rooms in this state of unnerved wonder and fear. And those sections are definitely like the best sections of the movie. I know that not everybody has enjoyed the more conventional like dialogue scenes that sort of serve as the skeletal structure of the movie. I thought those were fairly serviceable. I didn't dislike them. I don't think the writing is great, but I think that the main way in which this is different from Skinamarink is the Skinamarink just kind of like drops you into the deep end of this strange liminal space and never lets you out of it, right? Like there are no traditional dialogue scenes in Skinamarink. You basically never see a human face in that movie, right? You're just looking at corners and light switches and walls and things like that. And I think that a strong argument could be made either way for Skinamarink's approach being superior or Backrooms' approach being superior. But I think personally, I like the way that Backrooms does it a little bit more. I think that the runtime of Skinamarink really started to wear on me once we got to about the halfway point. Whereas this kind of like creates a context for that strange liminal experience. And I think that kind of like enriched, what I was thinking about while we're kind of like wandering through it. And kind of allows for a little bit more like emotional investment in the characters and things like that. But yeah, those are my thoughts about it. Michael and Grace, y'all have both seen it as well. So anybody else want to share?
I liked it. Probably not as much as you. And maybe part of that was that I was already familiar with like the Backrooms concept. I don't know how much of y'all like how much y'all had like been aware of it being a thing, but like that's actually Kane Parsons got his start making YouTube shorts on it, which I think the AI angle is really interesting because the Backrooms copy or creepypasta and like even Kane Parsons' work predates like the big commercial use of AI. And like in your review, Swaff, you mentioned kind of like the specter of capitalism and neoliberalism, which Kane Parsons has also mentioned in his interviews. And I think it's kind of interesting because there is a certain element of like the concept of the Backrooms that doesn't even need AI. It's just like the kind of the way that like we have like these like new built, like everything's like drywall, like wallpaper, kind of like mass produced like office spaces, like that in and of itself is its own kind of like automatic regeneration in American culture. And I think like if we read it as being about AI, it kind of like means that just AI is just another outgrowth of the same impulse. Which
seems to be what Kane Parsons thinks is true about AI as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of a symptom of a larger disease.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times AI is kind of, the Mission Impossible movies treat it this way, is like this kind of rupture, right? This like, thing that like, wow, we have opened Pandora's box, and maybe that's true in a certain extent, but in other ways, like it is kind of following the same logic that like our capitalist society always follows, which is interesting. I didn't love the like non-Backrooms scenes, I'll be honest, and I also didn't love the way that the Backrooms scenes create eventually a kind of very tangible threat. I thought the threat like that eventually is revealed ends up being kind of goofy the more you see of it. And I didn't find it very scary. Some of the stuff that is scary is you eventually see people down there and the people are kind of like malformed because in the same way that like if in the early days of image generation of AI, if you told them like, make a person with brown eyes and is 6 feet tall, it would be kind of like a weirdly, the person would have 5 fingers or more fingers than is normal,
a weird number of fingers, like 5.
Yeah. But and so like that is creepy, but there is eventually like one and like monster, and I thought that monster was silly looking.
I do agree that the monster is silly. I think that it's supposed to be kind of
like it starts looking like Five Nights at Freddy's, where it looks like a Chuck E. Cheese kind of like animatronic sort of thing, and I did not think that fit with it fits conceptually within like what it's trying to do with the dude's psychology and like how it fits with the character arcs and stuff. But like ultimately I found that stuff like way less interesting than just like dude clips through the wall and is exposed to this vaguely menacing space where you kind of know that there's something dangerous there, but you don't know what it is. I thought that was so effective. And then eventually it just kind of gets down to you're being chased by a monster through this maze. And that is way less interesting to me.
Now, I do think that Monster's kind of goofy, and there is like a chase scene with the monster that sort of serves as the climax of the film. But I don't think that the monster is ultimately like the scary thing in the movie, right? Like the monster is just like one product of this kind of larger process that's happening. It's almost kind of Lovecraftian in a way.
I agree, but it becomes the scary thing for the last 20 minutes of the movie. You know, like even if like holistically, it's not the big bad of the movie. What the movie is using to scare you in the last bit of the movie is just this monster. And that kind of kicked me out of the movie a little bit. I'll be honest.
Grace, what are your thoughts?
I take, like, as I've sat with this, we saw this together, and I had zero concept for the Backrooms whatsoever. And I kept telling myself that, like, I'm not afraid of liminal spaces, and I really don't think that I am following that. I got the sense that this whole thing looked like, I called it corporate fractals, like how it just kind of spirals out. But now that I think more from it's about trauma, in quotation marks or capital T trauma, the more that I do start to like the monster and I start to enjoy the chase that is the climax. Because I was thinking about, thinking about this concept of trauma, Swaff, you put it really, you put it, very plainly, how Mary, his therapist, she goes to rescue him. And so if these back rooms are just like, I thought it was interesting that the entrance to the back rooms is in the basement of the furniture store, which is the albatross around Clark's neck, which is to him, like at the core, the crux of all of his problems. It's that he can't be an architect because he has to work at the store, and he drinks because he has to work at the store. And the store is the reason why he, drinks and then lost his marriage
fell apart. Yeah.
And that, it has ruined his life. So then the back rooms then is the entrance into the back room is at the source, like the nexus of his trauma. And so then it spirals out from there, because all of the spaces look vaguely familiar, like to Clark, that we go through it. He knows how to map it out and everything because he's creating it. And so then I started thinking about how other people's trauma can then affect and infect you. And so Mary goes to rescue him to kind of save him from this pattern of thinking. And she finally is able to reach him and puncture this poor me victim mentality. And then Clark's sense of self totally collapses. And then we're left with this monster that is him at his worst, at his most degraded and the most uncanny. And it's chasing her. There's still that resentful, angry, malicious spirit. And then by the end of it, can I talk about the last scene? Is that okay with everybody? Because it's
yeah.
Okay. So then at the end of it, we have, it looks like it's a Mary figure, but she's not at her nexus of trauma, which is her family, her childhood home that she lived in with her mother, because in her reality, she's effectively faced and eliminated that trauma by having the house completely demolished. We see it in the back rooms. It's demolished as it was. It doesn't exist anymore. Where she exists now is at that kitchen table or the dining room table, where she was directly confronted, abused, and violently, that violent experience there with Clark. So when she returns there, that's her point. So then now she has a Backrooms Mary in the same way that Clark has a Backrooms monster that directly connects to his back room, to the furniture store. So I just thought, when I start to see it that way, now that monster and that monster chase is much more terrifying, because unfortunately, even though she gets away, did she really?
No, I mean, that's a big open question that a lot of people have debated online, is at the end of this movie, is the real Mary, not the doppelganger version of her, is the real Mary in or out of the back rooms? And the movie leaves it open to interpretation.
Well,
right.
What's his name says that's not up for me to decide, when she's like, are you going to let me out, or something like that.
Yeah.
Grace, I agree with you that it all kind of fits together thematically, but I think that like it ceased to be an interesting element of the movie to me when it just was like boiled down to. And I guess I would revise one thing that you said though, which is that he doesn't have to confront it. Like the way that she escapes is she lets him buy into his own narrative. She's like, okay, fine, it is, and then that destroys him, right? And so then that allows him. So I think that all works thematically. I don't know. It just didn't really work for me as like, a lot of like horror movies that are kind of like have a metaphor as their central thing. Sometimes there becomes a point where they kind of flip over and they just become all metaphor. And like to me, that kind of became that in the movie. And then like the appearance of that metaphor just started to be really silly looking to me. I thought by the end.
One other small defense of the monster thing is that even though the monster itself, I think, is kind of silly, I would still say intentionally so. I like that chase sequence between Mary and the monster, like partially because like any chase sequence in this movie involves people having to navigate the back rooms, and like the way in which that sequence kind of like escalates our understanding of what all the back rooms can be and look like is really incredible. Like the event, you find out that there's like whole like neighborhoods of the back rooms, and then like eventually she finds herself in like this impossibly tall like Tower of Babel-esque chamber of just like so many floors down she can't see the bottom, and being chased in that space I thought was fantastic. And one thing that I mentioned in my review that I think is worth mentioning here as well is that like all of this movie is shot on sets. This movie is not made with CG. Like they made pretty much all of these spaces. I think that
some of it is CG, but like a lot of the immediate
my guess would be the only thing that is like fully fake would be that like Tower of Babel structure. And they probably made like the section of it that she's on, but they just kind of like filled in what's below her. But it's really kind of amazing to see these things that they made.
Kane Parsons in his original YouTube stuff, a lot of that was like generated, which is kind of interesting that he would then.
It's all of it. It's all done in computers.
Yeah, and so it's interesting that when he gets like the feature film money, he's like, "No, I'm doing it practical." That's like a interesting impulse on his part. I have a question for you guys because I think that like mostly the human elements of this movie are like you said, Swaff, like serviceable. They weren't like, they kind of funneled effectively into what the best thing is, which is the Backrooms part. But like, I was curious. I wasn't always sure how to read the therapist as a professional. Like there seem to be parts of the movie that seem to be kind of like indicating that she's a little bit of a quack. Like when she has like her book stuff and on tape and stuff like that, it's very like woo. Like it's kind of like what a lot of times movies make fun of like motivational speakers sort of things for. And he's like listening on tape as he's going home. And then like in the back room, she kind of abandons the very reasonably kind of abandons her therapist project on him, and basically admits defeat and, that she couldn't help him. I'm just curious, like how we're supposed to read like the therapy element of the movie. Cause I have seen some people, I don't know if I agree with this or not, but there maybe is something there in the movie that like some people have taken this as like a kind of lampooning of like therapy as like a kind of culture.
So. I mean, I'm not an expert on this particular aspect of therapy, but like, I think that her whole system that she kind of like sells to people on tape and advertises for people to come do her in-person therapy for is basically cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Like it's all about kind of like recognizing what patterns like your thoughts get in and what kind of actions you do in response to those thoughts, and like finding ways to reframe certain things, kind of like tell yourself
and break through the pain
narrative. And like her whole thing is like the window within. Like you need to be able to find, you think you're stuck in a room with no windows, but you have to like find the window, right? And this basic idea of like breaking your unhelpful thought and behavioral patterns is like fundamentally sound. I think, if anything, I think the movie is like a little bit critical of the fact that like it is frowned upon for therapists to like directly confront their clients and like argue with them if they're you have to couch everything in like very I don't know, like kind and gentle.
Well, that's what I was curious about, because like he's asking her direct questions that she evades, and he understands that she's evading giving him direct answers, and that's part of what part of what causes him to spiral. So like I don't know, like I don't really think that these scenes are quite developed enough to like actually make like that much of a statement on it, but I did see some people comment on it, so I was curious what y'all thought.
Oh, I don't have any. I mean, like, I totally buy into the whole, like, it's about trauma and then this, like, very interesting, like, pattern of thought and how it, like, fractals out from it. And then the space, 1-to-1 ratio with, like, our negative thought patterns, how they're not quite right, but that's what we think. So does it look right? It doesn't fit right. And then where, you have, if you're in a windowless room, where are you going to put the window? It's kind of over here in the corner, break out. I like whispered to Swaff. I was like, oh, this is pretty misogynistic. The Clark's angry dialogue.
Yeah,
with Mary.
I think the movie's very clear about like that he is ultimately has a false conception of like, or at least a flawed conception of himself positioned with his memories.
But I can't really, but beyond that, I really can't speak to the therapy aspect of it because
I think the way in which it feels woo-woo is just because it's filtered through like 90s television aesthetics.
That is like an interesting,
like a TV commercial.
They like hardcore get like Renee's like wardrobe looking 90s, like like down to the watch like that she's wearing and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like it is like very 90s.
But I think we would all recommend Backrooms, despite some misgivings about it. Really unique horror movie, and I think like kind of reflects poorly on Obsession in comparison. But that's just me, I guess.
I agree.
Bro, guy said he knows a place. Took me to the Backrooms. Bro, what the fuck is this?
So do we have time to talk about one more, or should we go to Heat?
No, it's Heat time. The last one was I Love Boosters. I would say I recommend I Love Boosters. It's fun.
Go see I Love Boosters.
I think we all do.
Yeah, I like Boosters.
I love Boosters.
Yeah, I like Boosters.
We like to love Boosters.
All right, we're gonna take a short break, and when we're back, we're talking medals, we're talking heist. And we're talking about great ass after this. And we are back with part 2 of episode 508 of Cinematary. In this episode, we will be kicking off our Patreon Picks series for this year with the 1995 film classic, Heat, starring Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. For those unfamiliar, uninitiated, Heat is about an obsessive Los Angeles detective who tracks a brilliant, disciplined thief, 30 seconds flat, through the neon-lit concrete canyons of Los Angeles, realizing they have more in common with each other than the people they love. And they fall in love themselves. Yeah. Released on December 15th, 1995. It was written and directed by Michael Mann. Cost about $60 million to make and pulled in a cool $187 million. This is the first time that Robert De Niro and Al Pacino shared the screen.
They shared it since.
They have.
Irishman.
Wait, they're both in Godfather too, right?
They're both in
But
Godfather
they're
2, but
but
never shared a frame because they were
different.
not
Oh, I see. I see.
different
Because they're in different
timelines.
flashback. Yeah. Okay, never mind. I see what you mean.
Yeah, so for decades it was just like these are two of the guys on the top of the mountain, and they put them together.
And they
But
meet
since
at the top of that mountain, man.
The pinnacle.
it's amazing.
Al Pacino's shooting for the moon, though.
And
Not the
in an
top of the
effort not to
mountain.
like turn this into a ringer podcast, but like has there ever been a bigger like pairing to
Yeah.
just like bring together for a movie? It's incredible. They did some random crime thriller. I forgot what it's called. That was the second movie they were in together, and then the third one was Irishman. The story isn't purely fiction. It's based on the real life experiences of Chuck Adamson, a legendary Chicago cop. In the 1960s, Adamson actually tracked down a sophisticated professional thief named Neil McCauley. The infamous coffee shop scene is actually something that happened. Adamson and McCauley ran into each other at a Chicago deli, and Adamson invited him to grab a cup of coffee. Just like in the movie, they had a respectful but deadly conversation where they admitted that if they crossed paths during a heist, they wouldn't hesitate to kill each other. The real McCauley was shot and killed by Adamson's team during a robbery in 1964.
I didn't know it was based on a real story.
I didn't know that.
Michael Mann originally wrote the script in the late 70s, but he was unable to get it made as a feature. He truncated it and shot it as a 92-minute television pilot called LA Takedown. When the pilot wasn't picked up, he shelved it until he had the clout to make the definitive, uncompromised version. Michael Mann refused to shoot on studio backlots. He was shot entirely on location across 65 different Los Angeles sites over a grueling 107-day shoot. The legendary 10-minute downtown LA bank heist that happens near the end of the movie is widely considered the greatest shootout in film history. But why does it sound so terrifyingly real? Because Michael Mann didn't use post-production sound effects for the gunfire. He placed microphones strategically around skyscrapers of downtown LA to capture the authentic deafening echo of the blanks firing.
Wow.
He also had like hearing issues. And so like when you hear like the mix, it's just crazy because the guy couldn't hear. He was just like, I crank that up. I can't hear that.
I watched this on headphones, and like I felt like my head was gonna explode at points. I kept having to adjust the volume on my laptop because like I could not handle it.
Yeah, it's one time we watched this in like a friend of ours has a movie room, kind of like screening room at their apartment complex, and we were cranking heat, and it probably sounded like people were getting shot up in this apartment. It was crazy. The cast didn't just point and shoot. De Niro, Val Kilmer, and Tom Sizemore underwent months of intensive weapons training with actual British SAS and Special Forces operatives. In fact, Val Kilmer's lightning-fast reload of his Colt Commando rifle during the shootout was so tactically perfect that it was later used as instructional video footage for the U.S. Marines. If you want to watch a really funny Michael Mann training people how to shoot guns video, there's a special feature on Collateral where Tom Cruise is talking about the training he's going through to shoot the guns, and he has like this moment where he like is looking at the camera and he goes, "Yeah, and they let us use live bullets." It's awesome.
Conor O'Malley moment.
It was. He was like genuinely thrilled. For years, cinephiles whispered that De Niro and Pacino weren't actually in the room together for the diner scene, claiming it was shot entirely with body doubles over their shoulders. This was debunked. Yeah, this was debunked because these people needed a life, but they also shot with 3 cameras simultaneously, and both actors were absolutely there, playing off each other's energy over a grueling all-night shoot that started at 2 a.m.
They took all night to shoot that scene? My God.
I mean, that's the scene. You got to get it right.
I mean, it's a great scene. It paid off. I would not have guessed that took all night.
Yeah,
I would have thought they did it in like 1 or 2 shots.
Yeah, these are professionals at the height of their game. Like you meet on the mountain. This is
Michael Mann. This is not Clint Eastwood. It's, we're not calling it a day at 5. Heat completely redefined the modern crime thriller. Christopher Nolan openly admits that Heat was the primary visual and thematic blueprint for Gotham City in The Dark Knight. It also heavily influenced the video game industry, serving as direct inspiration for games like Grand Theft Auto 4 and Payday. There will be a sequel. It's worth noting that 2022, Michael Mann co-wrote the novel Heat 2, which acts as both a prequel and sequel. He's actively been developing the feature film, and the most recent rumors were that they're trying to get Leo on board, Leo DiCaprio, and he's going to play like an older version of the Val Kilmer character. Then you're gonna
Where the math
Steve.
doesn't work there.
Yeah, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. And then Christian Bale would be playing an older version of the Al Pacino character. Stephen Graham would be playing Neil McCauley, and Adam Driver would be the villain.
What stage of production is?
What if we
in?
had Al Pacino play old Al Pacino?
Right?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused why they would have younger people play living actors who could be older versions.
Well,
I'm
not
I'm not going to question my guys. Let's not question Michael Mann. Let's
okay.
let him
You're right. You're right.
Let's accept the Leo DiCaprio Christian Bale pairing that we're getting. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll be cool. Have you read the book?
I've not read the book. I need to read the book. It's I've heard it's kind of interesting. And that like it's like back. It goes back in the day when like I think Neil is like in Chicago, making noise, and Al Pacino character is there too. And then it goes forward to like where Val Kilmer is after he gets away at the end of the movie. So that's Heat. I can talk about it for a while. I feel like
Zach has actually not rewatched it because he
I didn't even rewatch it.
He can talk about it at any moment.
He's still warm from the last Heat.
That's true. I watched it. I watched for a long time. I had like enjoyed so many like Heat adjacent movies, and so finally people are like, you should just watch Heat. Just watch Heat, and I finally watched it. Gobsmacked.
Yeah,
like this is so great.
It is truly like one of those where it's like you can see its influence so widely, but sometimes when you watch that, it's like, yeah, well, I've already seen the influence. I've already seen the influence. It doesn't have the heat, but Heat's got the heat. Like you realize you've been like, been given leftovers when you watch Heat.
You watch
Cold leftovers.
You watch it and you're like, this is utterly sensational.
Yeah.
Hot ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it is obviously the best Michael Mann movie, and I think like hard to dispute it as like the best crime thriller ever made, right? Like what else would it
hard
even
to
is in
dispute
competition with?
Many movies. I think people would dispute you on that, but I think it's in the running for sure.
I just give it to Heat. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would ultimately fault you too bad if you did that, but
yeah. Yeah, I've seen it multiple times since then. I saw it like 2 times last year. I felt like I was covered for this.
Well,
go ahead,
it's such an interesting movie because it's really difficult to like speak critically about it because the entire time you're like, and then that scene, oh man, and then that scene, oh man, like it really like
That's what this podcast is gonna be.
It's just oh man, and then that was so cool. But we can try and speak critically about it. We can talk a lot about the look of it. I'm thinking a lot about all of the blues, that like blue wash that everything has is just gorgeous. The use of light and shadow for the very final scene or shootout. I'm thinking I saw this recently again. Or maybe we can go around and share like all of our like Heat awakenings. Mine is very funny. There was a summer where my brother was obsessed with this movie. And I was probably in middle school and he's in high school. And so there was an entire summer where we watched Heat maybe about 4 or 5 times, just over and over and over. And I'm like, what is this? This is amazing.
It's truly an obsessive movie. Like, I don't know. Like, that's why you just watch it. Because then you're just like thinking some days, you're just like, man, should I watch Heat again?
Right. And it's so easy to do, and it really moves. But I think calling it an obsession movie, it's an obsession movie for us. It is about obsession, meticulous, precise obsession. The amount of time that all of these people think and execute it is nothing short of an obsession. Thinking about everything that man did to create this is an obsession. We could talk about the various relationships within. Part of the reason why I'm bummed that your friend Ryan isn't here, because the last time he was on, we had a very nice conversation about women in Michael Mann movies. I remember saying, and I think it was very clever of me, I said, well, he's Michael Mann, not Michael Woman. But he does a really great job. And then I went on to talk about Thief, and I really like Tuesday Weld in it. But we can talk about, there are 3 women and a young girl, young Natalie Portman, and their relationship and their connection to the men that they directly mirror. The women are the men are the women, and everyone was boys and girls, and happy Pride. I think that would be like a fun way to dive into this. If we could,
wait, can you
take
back
a look
that up
at
a
it.
second?
Yeah, sorry, try and keep up. I'm sorry.
She's currently pitching like ways we should do this podcast while we're doing it.
Yeah, these are some interesting points that I think that we could, tease out.
We got to get all the heat awakenings though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everybody's heat awakening. But Michael, do you want me to go back to what I was saying about the men and the women, or do you want to
continue?
Oh, what I was saying is that the female characters that the men are attached to, like Neil and Amy. Oh my gosh. What's Val Kilmer's character's name?
I forgot what her name. It's Ashley Judd.
But Val Kilmer and Ashley Judd, and then Pacino and Justine. How well matched the men are to their women, and what they bring out of each other, and then why their relationships fail. Or I think in the case of Val Kilmer and Ashley Judd, I think that they're the only 2 that have a real chance of making it out of this. But I was just saying, the whole windup of this is, how do we talk about this movie without making it just like oh, wow, and then that was so cool. Here are some ideas. That's what I have to say. And what's everybody's heat awakenings?
First, remember this heat scene moment of the podcast. when Pacino gets home and she's like, the chicken's cold, and he goes, I got 3 dead bodies on Venice Boulevard, Justine. I'm sorry if the fucking chicken's a little too cold.
No, he says
he says that it got
overcooked.
burnt because he wasn't actually listening to
and
it.
he has this long pause. He's like, I'm sorry if the chickens, and he like turns over the drumstick.
And like kind of shakes it. Overcooked.
Overcooked.
Zach, when I close my eyes, I think that Al Pacino is in this podcast.
I love a good Pacino.
Is Al Pacino in the room with us right now?
Is he in the Backrooms?
Are
It's
they
Al
good?
Pacino in the Backrooms.
He's in the Backrooms. Michael, what was your first time watching Heat?
Probably 3 or 4 years ago or something. I'm not honestly. Look, y'all are gonna crucify me for this, but I mean this in a way that is not really negative. But I don't love Michael Mann like a lot of people love Michael Mann. I like Michael Mann. I don't dislike a single Michael Mann movie, but like there's some people who have him in like the pantheon, and to me, like he's just never been that to me. And so like I've watched many of his movies, and Heat was another one of his movies that I had watched, and I was like, wow, that's really good. And I watched it again a few days ago, and I was like, wow, that's even better than I remembered. So I'm sorry, that's not a very interesting like Heat awakening, but like
you're gonna watch it another time, and you're gonna be like, this might be the greatest movie.
I have no problems with like Heat being called great and all that. Like I mostly agree, but like I think that like I'm not invested in the Michael Mann career as a oeuvre, like a project. And I think that like for a lot of people, Heat is like it's the moment, it's like the Mulholland Drive of his of his career, and not just in the pilot turned into a feature film, but like in the sense of all of his themes kind of intertwined most visibly and most like probably like crowd pleasingly in like this 100%. Kind of like opus. And like I think that's undeniably true of his filmography. I just am not as taken by like the broader filmography of Michael Mann as like other people are. Yeah. And so like I don't think Heat is quite as like a mountaintop for me, but it is very good. Like it is like you will not hear me say that there's nothing bad about Heat. First time I saw it, I will say the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, Al Pacino's like too hot in this. Like there's like, but the second time I appreciated the energy he brought.
Every time you watch it, you're just like you kind of go like, he's way too hot. Well, okay, hold on. This is actually really great. This might be the best.
That was my second
He
viewing
can
was
go
like
hotter.
Yeah. My second viewing, because like Al Pacino has kind of become a caricature of himself. Like, especially in the 90s, he was really like transitioning into like the kind of like the SNL version of himself, you know? And the first time I saw it, like I kind of viewed it through that lens where I'm like, oh, this is like one of those Al Pacino performances where he's like just going way too hard. And like,
this one's okay. This one's okay though, compared to like Son of a Woman.
Son of a Woman is, that's like the core text of that.
Have you heard the story about what Michael Mann told him though? Michael Mann told him that Vincent Hanna is addicted to cocaine, but then you never see him do cocaine.
That would be my guess. Yeah,
that's perfect. Anyway, but my second time, I appreciated Al Pacino and I like really enjoyed like what he was bringing to the movie. You know, it's just like an acquired taste. The rest of the movie was not acquired. I liked it the first time.
Let's had coffee with him. Let's go.
I would say that, like you, Michael Mann's not necessarily like a pantheon director for me, but I do think that he is the best director at making the kind of movie that he makes. You know, like a kind of a mature adult like action crime thriller that like takes the emotional lives of his characters seriously and is also like shot with like such a clear vision. He has such a like a refined aesthetic, and like the way that he uses both like celluloid cinematography as well as digital cinematography in movies like Collateral and Black Hat is just like really cutting edge, looks nothing like anybody else other than like people who are trying to imitate him in a way that doesn't live up to what Michael Mann himself has already done. I would say that my Heat awakening was I watched it in college when I was hanging out a lot with a friend of the pod, former contributor Nadine Smith, who's very much a man head, Michael Mann auteurist for sure. And we watched a bunch of these movies together. I don't remember which ones we watched together and which ones we didn't, but we watched Thief, Collateral, Miami Vice, Black Hat, and Heat. And I think all those movies are great. And I do think Heat's the best one. I remember when I watched it, I came across a review by Matt Zoller Sites that really kind of like unlocked Michael Mann for me, like totally reframed the way that I saw all of his cinema. And I don't remember like the overall like argument of Matt Zoller Sites' review, but I remember he used this phrase that has always stuck with me, which was Zen pulp. The Michael Mann makes Zen pulp. And I think that is so perfect and like could not be encapsulated better by this movie. Like, for example, the very first shot of this movie is like this slow static shot of a train rolling in and like the smoke and the fog kind of like emanating off of it. And then like our first dialogue scene shortly thereafter is of Val Kilmer going to pick up a package, and he like exchanges some sort of like just logistical words with the guy he's picking the package up from. But it's like not a scene where like an actual conversation happens. And like crazy of Michael Mann to start his movie with like just us being dropped into this guy running errands, you know, and that's what's going on there. But then like as the movie goes on and you kind of get to know these characters more, Robert De Niro's character in particular is like the Zen master. You know, he has this like Buddhist philosophy of like don't be attached to anything that you can't leave in 30 seconds flat when the heat's around the corner, right? He is essentially saying like abandon all attachment, right? All you need to live for is like the present moment, right? And this movie is kind of about that perspective being challenged, but ultimately, like the vibe of the movie is very much the vibe of somebody who has like reached some sort of enlightenment with how to go about depicting this kind of thing.
Well, and I think that, like, to your point about, or I guess Matt Zoller cites his point about Pulp, like this kind of like mastermind criminal who like has thought through everything or whatever, like that's so much of a trope. And like a lot of times it's a pretty tiresome trope, but like the way that this movie kind of slows it down and like does make it almost like a kind of like meditative, like mantra based sort of thing, I think makes it a lot more believable that like what Robert De Niro's character is doing and acting, like even though like he is kind of on paper playing out these like I think fairly tired tropes about like this genius like male crime figure who just like flirts from like he's got his woman who like maybe will tie him down, but no, he's too committed to his craft, like all that is like so overplayed. But like the way that this film does it, like you're describing, Swaff, like I think it really kind of breathes new life into that archetype.
Well, you also kind of see it in his apartment too. There's the funny scene where he comes back to his apartment and like Val Kilmer is sleeping on his floor because he has no furniture.
Why aren't you getting furniture?
He's like, without really drawing a lot of attention to it, he's doing like the Paul Schrader, like God's lonely man thing. It's just a man in a room meditating upon mortality.
Yeah, well, and you have going back a little bit to what Grace was talking about before, like the blue hue, like and this is something that Mann does a lot, like kind of capturing the lonely man. Like you have like that scene where De Niro's just like sitting on the balcony of his apartment, like looking out at like the at like the water, or like there's at times when he's like looking out at like the sea of LA. You have a lot of these like kind of wide shots of like a character just kind of alone with their thoughts.
He's alone but not lonely.
Yeah, he's alone. I'm alone but not lonely.
But I think honestly that's a lie though. Like I think the movie shows us to be a thoroughly miserable life, I think, by the end.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a self-immolating life, and that seems I think that's ultimately shown to be very empty. So I think that's also interesting that like, stuff that like we initially think as like his commitment to his craft is kind of shown to be like just a hollowness.
Because it is a real commitment to the men that to the men in his life, his community, like these friends, his family, because it's about revenge, going after Waingro, the way that he looks out for Val Kilmer and how he tells Ashley Judd to stop having this affair. Like I think his name is Chris. I think.
Well, she's not actually having an affair, right? She was meeting with like a witness protection person.
Right. But it like
But
appears, it reads as an affair. And so he's like, you're going to stop stepping out on him. This is what you're going to do. You're going to listen to me.
Dude, I think that shit sucks though. Like I would have cheated on my fucking asshole criminal husband. Like I honestly think this is sort of the hollowness of it is that like, he is only dedicated to people in so much as they fit into the game. Right. Like, and that's why like the women are kind of like, collateral damage and all, like for all of these characters, is because they're so committed to their craft and the business that they kind of cannot care for the actual people around them.
I think that there is at least a real family style connection. I mean, they have their dinner together and they all know each other. I think that because I have my perspective on it is that there is a real family style connection because these are the people you're trusting them with your life every single day.
I don't necessarily mean the other guys because, like I said, those fit into their lifestyle. I'm talking about like everybody else in their lives. And like it goes on both sides. Like Pacino's daughter attempts suicide. He drops her off at the hospital and then immediately goes to get Robert De Niro. And like to me, that is cold as hell. Like that.
He's addicted to the game though. That's what I'm saying.
That like it's ultimately hollow because like anytime that there's like a meaningful personal connection that is not part of that game, they can't maintain it.
Are you offering this as like a criticism, Michael? I can't.
No. I'm saying that like I don't actually find the connection with the men to be all that warm either. It's all a function of like what's. I don't think there's family. I think this is like an ersatz family. You know,
I agree. I don't get a like found family vibe from their like camaraderie at all. It just feels like people who have been in business together a long time and watch each other's backs, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of emotional closeness there. Like when he calls Val Kilmer's wife and is like, "Why is your husband sleeping on my floor?" She says, "Husband and wife stuff." And then he could have a conversation with Val Kilmer about it, but instead he just pours him a cup of coffee and they like kind of like don't talk, you know.
Hey, the sun rises and sets with her, man.
That's true. That's true. But I think that Michael Mann is incredibly skilled at like capturing the emotional lives of men and like often like how they don't express their emotions, like what's going on below that blank affect. Like that gets so much more attention in Michael Mann's movies than, you know, any other action crime filmmaker you could name, I think.
Right. Yeah, and I think that like to the loneliness, I think it's ultimately a very sad movie, which is like there's a lot of like stuff that's kind of badass in Heat, but it's not like a feel good movie. No. And like that was like revisiting it, I was kind of struck by that is like kind of knowing the shape of the movie going in again, like just how the kind of weight of like there's no hope for these guys. These guys are just fucked because they cannot get out of their own kind of cycles of, you know, like self-isolation and like retribution and stuff. And like, there's a lot of movies with that theme, but it like is, I don't know. I found it really poignant this time around.
Well, that's kind of the basis of the whole. Sorry, Grace. The basis of the whole like De Niro and Pacino character like relationship is it's like it's kind of like you found your person. They both found their person that like is, you know, but it's like because they're on these different sides of a coin, it's like they can't consummate that. It's like
but the consummation is death. Like that's what the consummation is.
A little death.
That's right.
The big death. I would say.
Yeah,
or the big one.
Yeah.
The moment where Al Pacino sees Robert De Niro for the first time, I think is amazing because like he knows all this stuff about all these people in De Niro's crew, but because De Niro is the Zen master with no attachments, like there's no dirt on him anywhere, right? And so they stake out this botched, abandoned heist that De Niro and company are carrying out. And there's this moment where they capture this like black and white photo negative thermal image of Robert De Niro on camera. But the way the scene is edited together, it is as though Al Pacino and Robert De Niro are standing right in front of each other face to face. And it's like a reverse shot, like they're in the same room, but then like we cut back and he's just looking at him through this monitor. And
it's
like,
so beautiful.
Such an amazing like Romeo and Juliet love at first sight moment, you know.
Yeah.
This is it. This is a Romeo and Juliet adaptation.
It is.
Yeah.
Two lovers or two families both like in fair LA where we lay our scenes.
Looking at like the overall story, what do y'all make? You know, you kind of have like the main story is the Pacino and De Niro, like their two teams kind of racing against each other. But then you have a couple like side missions of you have the William Fichtner character, you know, I'm talking to a dead guy, you know, telephone, like
that guy also in The Dark Knight. He's in that first
right.
Dark Knight sequence. Yeah.
Like just great like side, like kind of like a side thing going on. You have the whole It's very brief, but you have like the Dennis Haybert character who kind of shows up and is tertiary and then like becomes part of the heist at the end. Um, what do y'all make of some of the like kind of side stories to the overall story?
To
One
be
of
honest,
the
go ahead, Grace. Go ahead.
one of the side stories that I really enjoy like all of the sort of tag along criminals. I like the Danny Trejo, and I
Yeah.
also really
Who's
enjoy
named Trejo?
his name
His
Trejo.
name is Trejo.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Well, I didn't enjoy it. So like back to Michael's point about like these are they're very sad. It's felt like very melancholy. His whole story is awful, and how he is begging to be put out of his misery so he can go be with his wife, the woman that he loves. Which again, this movie does a really great job of drilling, how dangerous and how the work that these men do and the ripple and how the women or the other people in their lives are then caught up and then are left behind, and the women have to carry the brunt of the grief and the sadness and the hurt of their actions. And the other one that I really enjoy is Dennis Haybert's character of Breeden, as a formerly incarcerated Black man who is now a parolee, and he's got a report
Working for Bud Court.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for Bud Court, he's got to do this like work detail, and how degrading that whole experience is, and how he's like, it's still like I'm in prison, and how very sad his story is. We keep returning to him, and we don't know how he's going to be utilized, and it's not until the big heist that we have him, and then there is this real feeling of like, you get this feeling that he believes that this is truly all he's made for, and that this is what he's good for, and then it takes his life. And then again, how sad his wife and girlfriend is, because she really believed in him. And, all of these women that like believe in and support and love these men, watching them suffer at those hands. Those sort of tertiary stories I are the ones that like I pull out and turn over.
Hank Azaria subplot.
Well, but before we go to another one,
being in it until then.
I wanted to camp out for another moment on the Dennis Haysbert character, because like we get, before like he kind of like fully enters the world of the story, we get this incredible scene between him and his girlfriend, in which like she encourages him to just take this really menial job as like a guy taking out the trash at this restaurant because he can't find anything else, right? And he's able to have this like very emotional exchange with her, in which he gets kind of teary-eyed, in a way that like we never see any of the male characters have those kinds of exchanges with other men, right? It's like only ever men and women being emotionally vulnerable with one another, right? But there's also just the fact that this scene exists for that character, right? This guy's a very small character in a 3-hour movie. And I think in most movies, the driver doesn't get a backstory scene, but like we just like inject so much like emotional buy-in to this guy's role in all of this, that it is fucking heartbreaking when you see him die in the getaway car, right?
Well, it's a good enough scene that it doesn't just feel like that kind of like, oh yeah, my editor told me I needed to have a scene with this guy. So like, because some of that could have,
it gets just as much attention like cinematically as the diner scene with Al Pacino and De Niro.
So then everybody has stakes. Something like it elevates everybody's stakes instead of like, and then this guy is just our driver, is just our getaway driver. Please, Michael.
I was gonna say, something that I can't believe I had forgotten between my original viewing of this movie and seeing it the second time, and like I can't believe I forgot about it because it's like such an important piece of the plot, but in some ways it does feel kind of tertiary, is all the Waingro stuff. Like I had completely forgotten. I thought my memory of the movie was entirely the Al Pacino, Robert De Niro cat and mouse, and I totally forgot there's a fucking serial killer in this movie.
Yeah.
And he only gets like a couple scenes. Like honestly, like he fucks up the robbery at the beginning. Then you see the horrible scene with him and the sex worker. And then there's like a couple others. And like the amount of like the kind of wrench he throws into the plot is like super important. But like in some ways, there's a version of this movie where he's not in it, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it still works. This like, and I kind of found that fascinating because he's like all of a sudden you're in like 7 or something like with this
Yeah.
guy. And like I had totally forgotten like just how bracing that was to see that like pop up. And it's really just for like just a second.
He's trying to get it on, man.
Well, and then you get when they discover his victim's body, you get that really intense scene where her family is trying to like come onto the crime scene, and like Al Pacino's like holding him back, and like, you know, that kind of thing, like, which again like is honestly probably the most vulnerable Pacino seems in the movie. I don't know if that's like a bedside manner or what, but like he seems to be genuinely trying to comfort the family in some way.
Yeah.
And again, that's between him and a woman rather than like with any of the men he interacts with.
But that's like the only time he can like, again, like his complete world is being a police, you know, being a cop.
Yeah.
And so
well,
it's
but
like,
it's
that's
he's also set it up with his wife so that like he's told her, I will never talk to you about this stuff. Like he has intentionally kind of cut off his family from it, despite his wife at times like kind of making overtures to like want to help him like talk about this stuff.
Well, that's so interesting. He like builds up that wall that like I can never let you into this part of my life, but then the very moment when those like cop reflexes, emergency de-escalation, like when those instincts kick in is when Natalie Portman's character has attempted suicide. So now that's forced him to open up that part of him and finally share that with Justine. They have I feel like they have a very tender, like understanding moment between the two of them in the hospital waiting room. And it speaks volumes that Natalie Portman chose him to be the person to rescue her, that he does pay attention to her in a way that I don't know if she feels like her mother really does, and certainly not in a way that her, you know, biological father does.
Do you think he pays attention to her, or she wants him to pay attention to her? Because I don't actually see him pay that much attention to her.
I think
in the
it's
movie.
that she wants him to.
Oh, you think? Oh, okay. Well, then
he's
I
like
probably
late to
misread
pick
that,
her
'cause
up
he
at the
picks her
beginning of the
up.
movie, but he's late to pick her up, and like there's all these things where he's kind of doing the traditional like busy dad in the family movie sort of thing, where he's just like you know, doesn't have time for his kids because of his job. You know, I feel like that's
it's also
like
not. She's not biological. They talk about like he's a stepfather.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not the stepfather. I'm the father that stepped up. And I think, I don't know. I think that she really loves him, and she like appreciates him. And the way that like her mom kind of can't get at the heart of her missing a father, the way that he is now this father figure to her. But
flawed surrogate, you know, because her actual father
and he does a great job. But then that forces the hand, and then now he's able to have those vulnerable moments with Justine.
I think he has that one vulnerable moment, but again, like I said, he immediately runs off to get De Niro. Like he doesn't stay at the hospital, you know. I think like
it's De Niro.
Well, exactly. Like that's ultimately his allegiance. Like and in some ways, I think that moment is only vulnerable because, like you said, it kicks in his cop mode, you know, and so like that's his true self. You know, he's like domesticity is a facade for him. And so like by having domesticity break down and he has to act like a first responder, that's what allows the vulnerability, and he has to run off and continue to be a cop rather than allow domesticity to like those scripts to take over again.
Yeah. What's the guy's name that she cheats on him with? What's his name again?
I don't know.
Oh, some guy, and then some donkus.
He's like, sit down.
Watch my
Who
TV.
is that guy? I know that actor from something.
What's his name again? I just remember he just like yelled at him. He goes, sit down.
Who is this?
Oh, then that's interesting. That's her act of self-harm, is to step outside the marriage in the way that like then like mother like daughter Natalie Portman self-harms to get him to pay attention. We could look at it that way. It's not very nice or pleasant, but I guess you could. Pay attention to the women in your life, or else they'll cheat on you, or maybe
Was
attempt suicide. That's
was anybody
obsession.
was anybody else moved that we were able to see the creation of the internet orchestrated by Tom Noonan?
That scene
That
is one of my
was so
favorite in the
cool.
movie. Like that's Black Hat
grab it.
in embryonic
Things are in
form.
the air. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
boy.
fantastic. You just got to know where to grab it.
Yeah, that's another scene where it's like you didn't need this scene to be like this, but you made it like this, and I appreciate
Honestly,
it being here.
honestly, also just some just fantastic moments from John Voight. Like John Voight just like popping up, like it's just great.
I think when thinking about like emotionally charged moments that men share together in this movie, the phone call scene between John Voight and Robert De Niro is ranks pretty high for me, because he's essentially saying like, hey, you're home free, you're scot free, you get to get away, right? But he's also saying goodbye to somebody who he's worked with for who knows how many years, right? And they're never going to see each other, they're never going to speak again. But and like there's a certain air in the conversation, like a tension in the conversation, where both of them are acknowledging that like this conversation has a sense of finality to it, and there's sadness weighing it down, but neither of them say anything to that effect, not even goodbye, you know.
Yeah.
And then once he gets off the phone and his like possibly girlfriend asks him who it was, and he's like, oh, it's nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Like such a great depiction of masculine vulnerability or lack thereof.
Well, yeah, because it's a lot of I think a lot of the conversations in the movie are not direct, you know.
Yeah.
It's like they're talking to each other in an emotive way, but completely within their own language.
Right.
You know, a lot you think about like De Niro and Val Kilmer. You mentioned De Niro and John Voight in that scene. You know, I think about like the scene when they're trying to decide if they want to do the last heist. You know, he's asking Tom Sizemore and Trejo if they're gonna do it. It's you have like Val Kilmer is just like, you know, I'm pretty much like, I'm following you, like I got to do this. Tom Sizemore is, you know, he says, you know, the action is the juice. And then Trejo's just like, yeah, man, let's do it. But then you have like the outliers. You have like De Niro and Pacino, like they're very much like talking straight at each other. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, to me, that just feels like very genuine. Like that's a lot of conversations that are had, is like you're talking about something, but you're actually not talking about something. And I think that's kind of what I think that's what draws, you know, predominantly like a male audience to the movie, because it's you know, it's like being seen.
Well, but like that quote, like the action is the juice, is kind of like the thing that like people talk about like with male friendships, is usually that there's some sort of proxy activity that like men engage in when engaging with each other. And like a lot of times it's like, yeah, is this dude that like, well, it's like that movie, it's like Ephus, right? Like the baseball is not like, the juice is like what's going on between them there, you know. And
baseball is the juice.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I think like there is something, again, like just I was struck by just how sad it is, because like you could imagine a world that doesn't really exist, but there could be a world in which like the energies that are put into like these men like being socially engaged with each other and connected to each other, being put to something that is like at least not self-destructive, you know. Like, I mean, it wouldn't be a good movie necessarily to like just watch them like do a bowling league or whatever, but like
I would watch that.
I mean, maybe he can make that. Yeah,
he too bowling league.
Yeah, De Niro, Val Kilmer, Trejo, and Tom Sizemore in a bowling league.
De Niro back from the dead.
But I do think that like it's sad, because like, you know, the dude literally has like no reason to do the heist, you know, except that he's just in it for like that activity. And like, you know, I don't know, like that's just a real bummer to me, like that their lives, their psychologies, and their world is structured in such a way that that's the meaning that they find is like in these this like obviously maladaptive behavior.
Yeah.
And I just think that is very heavy in the movie. And I think that the last scene is so like at the airport is so, or the airfield is so, it's like heavy. It's like watching the end of Hamlet or whatever, where these characters just like march into their own death, you know? Like and
then Al Pacino holds his hand as he dies.
Right.
That's
I
right.
mean, like that's it. They share a moment.
And then the fucking Moby song plays. Holy shit.
But I mean, that's just it. Like they share a moment, like, and the only way they can get that is by killing each other. I don't know. I know this is like, it's a little bit silly to moralize a movie like that, but like it was kind of a bummer, like watching it, thinking like, wasted human potential or whatever, and just because I think that is true in real life too. I mean, men are not all, hyper competent criminals doing bank heists or whatever, but like, I do think that broadly, like there are like maladaptive behaviors that men stick with because it gives them some like framework for social interaction, and like ultimately the social scripts it makes it hard for them to find meaningful connections outside of those maladaptive structures, and I mean, incel forums, all that shit,
Why do you think I keep a working knowledge of what's going on in football? I got to be able to have conversations with other men.
Yeah.
I think they're also victims of probably like economic insecurity, as are like our more marginalized characters. And I think that those maladaptive behaviors certainly come from that. We want to talk about maladaptive behaviors. I mean, Wangro's whole serial killer thing. I mean, he loves that maladaptive behavior. And I think that does a really nice job of like painting a deeper picture of, they do a good job. Like, these guys are criminals. They pull off heists, but then it deepens the idea that like some of them are criminals because of this, maybe gambling debts, or, maybe they fell into this life of crime. This guy's evil. And here's how
but like he's evil in a way that fits into the broader superstructure, right? Like, I mean, he is like one iteration of like the whole like masculine thing that is really like, I don't know. I mean, if you're like a reductionist, you could say like all of this is just economics, is all just material conditions that people are responding to, and like gender scripts are like a structure that allows people to cope within those like environments. And so like I don't know, I think that like the movie is like tactile enough to maybe like justify that reading too. But whatever,
the killing is the juice.
Yeah,
right?
the killing is the juice.
The action is the juice.
Yeah. When speaking of like why these guys do what they do, I think this might be a good way to segue into the diner scene, which we've not really talked about, but definitely deserves attention. Part of what gets discussed in the diner scene is the fact that De Niro doesn't feel like it's too late for him to learn how to do anything else.
Well, he doesn't want
that
to
barbecue and ball games.
Yeah, that's right. Like he's doing this because it's what he's always done, right? And partially economically speaking, and partially like gender wise, like men are often taught to kind of define themselves by their work and to like go out and accomplish things and become successful, right? And like that is why you get the trope of like the busy businessman dad who doesn't have enough time to spend with his kids, and like when you call him out and he's like, I'm doing all this for you, right? But yeah, this is kind of a movie about getting subsumed by your work and like not having any sort of personality outside of that as well.
Well, and to the point about the like barbecue and ball games or whatever, like the kind of like legitimate signifiers of success are kind of like structurally at odds with the need to work all the time, right? Like leisure, like bourgeois, like middle class, like recreation, all that is supposed to be what is like meaningful for people, but like we have a world that is so structured around work that like work is what's actually meaningful for so many people, because like that is what's actually incentivized and like propped up as like something that has real significance, as opposed to the kind of suburban, kind of like fake community that gets built up as a like carrot for some people. And I don't know, I think that's really interesting. Like I don't think he's wrong to be dismissive of like barbecues and ball games, because like we have so many other movies of suburban ennui where it's like the man is trapped in the suburbs and like is alienated from these kind of social obligations while he's like punching in a clock at like an office, like American Beauty or something like that, right? Where like the barbecues and ball games are also not the juice, right? Like that is just another manifestation of like the kind of ways that like things are intentional, maybe not intentionally, but things are unfulfilling on like when in the ways that people are supposed to be connecting with each other.
And the fact that they have that exchange at the diner, that like this is the one exception in the movie of like a man having an emotionally vulnerable conversation with another man, feels like very much of a piece with like what that scene is doing in the movie. Like it feels as though these characters have both kind of like stepped into a world where the rules don't apply, right? That I am a criminal and you are the cop and we're supposed to be at odds with each other, but just to humor the idea, let's just sit down and have a cup of coffee and have a conversation, right?
Well, think about how like charged the like initiation is. I mean, Pacino fucking calls like a helicopter, gets on the helicopter and chases him down the highway. Like it's like it's the most romantic shit. It's just like, I'm coming to you right now. I'm pulling you over. We're gonna get coffee.
And they're talking about their recurring dreams and stuff like that. Like it is a very it is the kind of conversation that I would never expect to see in a movie like this.
Right. Yeah, it's a great scene.
They have like the scene where they're both looking at each other and just like smiling like I love it. It's great. And it is like, I don't know, unlike a cinematic history level, it's just like, how many scenes do you have where it's just like, here are like two of the top powers at this period in time, just like going one-on-one in like a scene. It's incredible. And
in an action movie that has that amazing bank heist shootout sequence and has this amazing like armored car attack at the beginning, but the scene that really is most memorable is just a conversation between two people having a cup of coffee, right?
It does. Yeah. To evoke one of the warmed over leftovers of Heat, it reminds me of the way that like, one of the most iconic scenes in The Dark Knight is the scene where Batman and Joker are in the interrogation room together. And like, that's gotta be just like a riff on the scene, right? Like, it's actually just now occurring to me that must be, but like, I do think,
isn't that like kind of closer to the climax of the movie? I don't remember where that falls, but
catch him in the middle.
And it is in the middle.
Afterwards, Joker escapes and they do the whole like boats and like, anyway, it's not.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that this scene is placed like in the dead center of this 3-hour movie, right? It does feel like these titans meeting on the top of a mountain, right? We're building up to it, and then we're kind of like seeing the fallout of it for the rest of the film.
I've seen The Dark Knight a bunch of times, but it's been like, that was like around the time that it came out and like years after. I can't remember the last time that I sat and watched it. I would be curious to revisit that under the context of like 4 Heat viewings. Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's obviously like deeply indebted. Like that was the first time I watched Heat. It was like, listening to like the Velvet Underground and Nico or something like that, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is where everyone's getting this shit. Like, and
I think that The Dark Knight nails the aesthetic better than pretty much anything else you could name. But it's not as good of a movie as Heat.
No, I mean, partially because Nolan is not. I think like the Michael Mann meticulousness of like all of his movies feel like they're made by like a watchmaker. Where like
there's no emotionality to it.
It's so smooth and like just like everything is just like interlocking in just this like masterful way, just on a technical level. And like I do remember the last time I watched The Dark Knight, I was kind of struck by it that it's stylistically very sloppy. Like there's so many things where they cut a lot of times because you could tell that probably like they're switching between takes, or like Nolan couldn't decide like which angle to do. Like the really iconic scene where they flip the semi, I had forgotten, but they chopped that up. They like Nolan chopped that scene to hell, and it strikes me as like a kind of insecure filmmaking, whereas Michael Mann is so he is like so pristine and confident in like what he is doing, because he has that like just like airtight technical craft.
It's kind of like it's a very basic reading, but like he just has like a vibe. Like narrative doesn't like act out in front of you. It just like it rides a wave.
Yeah.
And like the thing to get into to most of Michael Mann is just like you just gotta kind of catch the wave and like be imbued in that. Like it's not about we watched one time with a number of friends, and they were getting frustrated with like what's this, what's that, and I'm like, it doesn't matter what this and that is. It's just like it's like the symphony, you know. It's there's no like pathway. It's just more of like the forward momentum. And if we're talking about Christopher Nolan's best movie, it's Tenet, that's when he finds the mojo.
That's also
Tenet is also like a vibe movie, because you can't worry about that shit.
The vibe is the juice.
Maybe I need to watch Tenet, because me and Michael are reading Gravity's Rainbow right now, and so I'm thinking about like confusing plots.
The thing about that versus Gravity's Rainbow is like Gravity's Rainbow is funny and rewards like the close attention, whereas I do think Tenet is best experienced when you just kind of let go and you're like,
right.
I'm not going to be able to follow everything.
I was under the influence and watched Tenet and was like, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
Like
that's how to do it. Yeah.
It's just like, well, what's this? It doesn't matter what this is. It's just, you know,
it looks cool, man.
It looks super cool.
Speaking of that looks cool in Heat, maybe the coolest image to me is when Robert De Niro is driving, and like all of a sudden they go into that tunnel, and like the camera or the color of the shot like all of a sudden switches from black dark blue to blinding white. So cool.
I think Michael Mann. Sorry, Grace, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that was one of my favorites. Like I love the blinding blue. My favorite is the De Niro's Zen moment looking out on his apartment, and you like can't tell where the water is, where he begins, and it's just an ocean of quiet contemplation and loneliness.
Also the amazing like skyline vista when he brings that girl back to, I guess they go to like a hotel or something. And they're like looking over the glittering blue lights of the city,
and he's comparing it to like the luminescent algae. Which is like a good comparison based on how that shot looks. But I do think that like Michael Mann's aesthetic is really good at like capturing like what this is going to sound like, I guess, backhanded, but it's not. He's really good at capturing what it feels like to be in a central business district in a big city. Like the aesthetics that he captures, that like kind of like harsh but like weirdly beautiful like artificiality of like the environments is like really well captured in Michael Mann movies in ways that like a lot of movies are not good at. They either look like car commercials and are like completely antiseptic, or they're like really warm and like full of life, you know, like, you know, New York, wow, you know, we're all yelling at each other, I'm walking here, you know, that sort of thing, you know. But like a lot of modern business districts are not really like that. They're kind of like strange and empty, but kind of like brutalist and austere in like really interesting ways, and like his movies like really capture that well, I think.
Well, when I'm thinking of like points of comparison aesthetically, like my mind is drawn to commercials. I'm imagining like a very fancy watch commercial, you know. It's gonna have like the sheen and the slickness of a Michael Mann movie, but like despite the fact that it is so it has this crispness to it. It never feels soulless at all.
Right. An even better example is Collateral. Just the way that Collateral looks.
I've never actually seen Collateral.
Oh, Collateral is really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Weird.
Collateral, Heat, and
Shoot live
Miami
bullets.
Vice are my favorites.
I love Thief.
I struggle with Miami Vice, I'll admit, but I love Manhunter. I think Manhunter slept on.
Talk
Manhunter
about
is very
blue.
good. Yeah, I actually really like his '80s movies. Like I think that they have really interesting aesthetic. Also, he's got the Tangerine Dream score in Thief.
That's so
which is
good.
just choice. Yeah, I don't know. There is something like where the earlier Michael Mann films do have a bit more less of like the Swiss watch quality and a bit more of like they're way more like openly like vibey in a way that's like a little bit less slick than like kind of 90s onward Michael Mann. And I think part of me gravitates toward that a little bit.
Any final thoughts on Heat, Grace?
I got to rewatch Heat in April. I showed it to Cole. He had never seen it before. We were watching YouTube
So it was
videos.
like the fourth movie he'd seen.
Yeah, out of
Imagine that.
Imagine that. No, he's
That'd be
doing
amazing.
great. We're up to at least like 10 or 11 now. But
Was it your first or your second date with him where you took him to my Joan of Arc score?
second?
Oh my god!
It was our second date. He saw a silent movie for the first time, a live scoring to a silent movie for the first time, and it was his first movie at Central Cinema.
I remember him loving it.
Shout out to Cole for being
he
along for
loved
the
it.
ride.
Oh, he loved it, and he has been so along the ride.
Shout out
He's been-
Cole.
Shout out Cole. He has so been along for the ride when it comes
I
to
met that guy
movies.
twice. I like that guy.
He's a darling, but I wanna share some of his feelings because I think he said it so well.
We need the man's perspective on Heat.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
No, I know enough with the woman's perspective. Right? You know, we gotta be quiet, darling, right? But the men are speaking, and so he said. So first of all, he's also not much for movies that are 3 hours. That's
Heat is pretty long.
It doesn't feel like 3 hours though.
And that's
No.
also what he said too. He
Yeah.
said it's like 3 hours, but it really doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And then, so he says, you know, you think it's a bank robbery movie, but it's about so much more than that. And so I was like, absolutely, you're 100% right. I could not agree more. And he just really loved the masculine energy of it and the male to male bonding dynamic. But he's absolutely right. It's so much more than a heist movie. It is everything in between. It is domesticity. It is addiction. It is obsession. It is violence. It is maladaptive behavior patterns. It is male toxic masculinity. It is battered women. It's
weirdly, I don't think that Michael Mann sees toxic masculinity as toxic.
Oh
right?
no,
Like he is like, again, the Zen master accepting it as it is. Right. This is what men are like.
Maybe I'm taking
Let's
that too
depict
far.
them
No, I think
and take them seriously, you know?
But
I think you're right to call it that, but I think that the movie itself is not
Wouldn't.
the movie is not like I don't know. I like in a weird way it's like documenting something without actually like caring
commenting
to
on it.
categorize
Yeah.
or pathologize.
It doesn't feel like it's letting them off the hook.
No.
It feels like it's investigating
on
and
it.
trying to understand.
Yeah,
you know?
it's honest, but
Yeah.
it's also not like if the movie had been like quote unquote like about toxic masculinity, I do think we would have been kind of like required to have a distance from these characters to kind of view them as like specimens of this like category, whereas like the movie is almost like too close to these characters to like be like directly about like toxic masculinity in a kind of pejorative sense. I don't know.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So much more than a bank robbery movie.
So much more.
It is a bank
100%.
robbery movie. The bank robbery is cool.
Bank robbery is
It's
super
very
cool.
cool.
I think
That-
if you get away with bank robbery, like if you get out of the building with the bank's money, I think that the bank should just be like, that's on us.
Yeah.
That's on
Well,
you.
like
We
there's
won't call
an
the cops."
awesome line that it kind of occurred to me where they're like, we're not after your money, we're after the bank's money. You're insured by the FDIC. And I was like, is there like discourse around like the FDIC kind of tacitly encouraging bank robbery because they'll just like the federal government will just reimburse people's losses. Like I don't know. It made me think about that a little bit.
But that's all. I have an entire list on Letterboxd that's just about bank robbery movies, and I think that bank robbery should always, number one, it's a victimless crime. If they get away with it, it's on the bank. I think that we should also elevate bank robbers to like local heroes. It's like, yeah,
True.
fuck the bank. You got one over on them.
It's
That's not
free
my
money.
money.
Cinematary is pro bank robbery.
I'm pro bank robbery. Let's do it.
Fuck you, Bank of America.
One more stray thought that I was remembering while talking about the bank robbery scene. We already kind of mentioned it when Zach was going over his fact sheet, the way that Michael Mann mixes the audio of gunshots. It's awesome. But also I feel like it's worth saying that like there's once shooting starts in a Michael Mann movie, no one is talking anymore. Like nobody is doing like the yippee-ki-yay motherfucker like quippiness like between gunshots, like because you can't hear anybody and also you can't fucking think because like bullets are flying and people quit.
They're in the office now. It's time to work.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Heat, one of the great American crime epics. De Niro, Pacino. She's got a great ass. I don't know what more you want in a movie, to be honest. Sure, there's other types of movies, other genres of movies, but like at the end of the day, it's got everything.
That's why it took us 508 episodes to talk about.
Yeah, it's got everything.
It's
wonderful.
going to take us 508 to cover it all.
Coming to you live.
Yeah, that was our episode about the first minute of Heat.
Yeah. Well, thank you as always for listening to Cinematary. It was good to kind of work out the old school Cinematary and do a little part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Sure, we're at 2-hour mark, but
hell, that's old school Cinematary too.
What did I just say? It's Heat. This ain't your mamby-pamby other stuff. Thank you. We mentioned this is our Patreon picks. If you would like to support the show, patreon.com/cinematary. We do a monthly movies we saw this month episode, which is very much like the old school part, like the part 1 we did today. We'll also be having a upcoming series from Grace, which I'm sure we'll find some goodies to drop into the Patreon for those people supporting the show. Also just a good space to, if you're just like, I really like what you're doing, drop us $1, $5, $10, whatever you'd like.
Rob a bank, give us the proceeds.
Rob a bank and give us the money.
I think it's so cool.
You would be our favorite patron if you did that. Thanks as always, Ron Hayes, Cam, Teresa Marsati, Tyler Chandler, Sam Shapiro, Michael's wife, Michael's aunt,
Michael's man.
Michael's man, all the people. Thank you so much for your patronage. We don't know what our next Patreon pick will be. We're going to be kind of picking them at will.
It's to be determined for sure.
We just put it on the calendar
with a question mark.
With a question mark. Caveat. Remember?
But we know we're doing that one next.
Well,
maybe not.
We're gonna hopefully keep like a 1 to 2 to 3 week schedule where we're dropping these. But yeah, it'll be a mystery. It's like a little mystery box. I don't know.
We're not revealing it. Okay.
No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna, I mean, I don't know why you're even listening past this episode. It's Heat.
It's another really good one though.
Not as good as Heat though.
It's probably not as good as Heat, but it's really good.
It's about half.
That's how we're gonna rate the rest of the series. Is we're gonna be like, is it better than Heat?
Yeah.
It's a bracket. But thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.